What happens when a home becomes a heart? When the line between best friends and soulmates shatters forever? For Elena, Claire, and Rachel, their cozy apartment was a sanctuary of friendship, a place of shared meals, inside jokes, and unwavering support. They thought they had the perfect balance. Until one rain-soaked night, a confession spoken in the warm glow of their kitchen changed everything. 3 hearts. 3 confessions. One impossible, beautiful love that could either be their ruin or the greatest thing that ever happened to them. This is the story of how 3 women discovered that love isn't always a choice between 2 people. Sometimes, it's the breathtaking, all-consuming choice to love each other. Subscribe to my channel for beautifully told, original lesbian love stories. New chapters of romance every day. The rain against the windows of their 3rd-floor walk-up was a soft, persistent percussion, a sound so familiar it had become the white noise of their shared life. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of old books, drying lavender, and the rich, earthy aroma of stew simmering on the stove. It was Claire's doing, of course. When the world turned grey and chilly, Claire Dupont responded with warmth and sustenance, her love language written in thyme and bay leaves. Elena Serrano watched her from the small, worn armchair in the corner of the living room, a sketchbook balanced on her knees. Her charcoal pencil was still, her artist's eye captivated not by the lines of the room but by the woman within it. Claire moved with a graceful efficiency, stirring the pot, wiping down the counter, her blonde hair tied up in a messy but elegant knot, a few stray curls clinging to the damp skin of her neck. She hummed something, a fragment of a Chopin nocturne, and the sound wrapped around Elena's heart like a vine. "It smells like heaven in here," a voice, bright and energetic, cut through the quiet symphony of rain and humming. Rachel Kim stood in the doorway, shaking water from her dark, glossy hair. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold, and her eyes, the color of dark honey, sparkled with the residual energy of the city. She dropped her leather satchel, stuffed with architectural blueprints and a laptop, onto the floor with a thud and shrugged out of her wet jacket. "It's a monsoon out there," Rachel announced, padding into the room in her socked feet. She went straight to Claire, wrapping her arms around the taller woman's waist from behind and resting her chin on her shoulder to peer into the pot. "My savior. I'm starving." Claire leaned back into the embrace, a soft smile playing on her lips. "It's almost ready. How was the site?" "Frustrating." The client changed his mind about the south-facing windows, again. "I swear, if he says let's workshop the synergy of the natural light one more time, I might workshop my stapler into his forehead." Rachel's complaints were always delivered with a theatrical flair that made them more endearing than angry. Elena laughed softly from her chair. The passionate artist and the pragmatic architect. "I'm surrounded by greatness." Rachel's head snapped up, as if noticing Elena for the first time, though Elena knew she'd seen her the moment she walked in. A different, softer smile touched Rachel's lips. She disentangled herself from Claire and crossed the room in a few quick strides. She plopped herself onto the arm of Elena's chair, her hip pressing warmly against Elena's shoulder. "And what has the 3rd great artist of this household produced today?" Rachel asked, peering down at the sketchbook. Elena instinctively tried to close it, but Rachel's hand was already there, gently stopping her. The page was filled with Claire, not a photorealistic portrait, but an impression of her. The curve of her spine as she bent over a book, the elegant line of her throat, the concentrated furrow of her brow. It was all essence and feeling, rendered in smudged charcoal. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. "Elena," she breathed, her voice losing its boisterous edge, becoming something reverent. It's her. It's so perfectly her." Claire came over, wiping her hands on a towel. "What is it?" She looked over Rachel's shoulder, and her breath caught. Her blue eyes, usually so calm and placid, widened with a vulnerable wonder. "Oh, Lenny." The use of the pet name, something usually reserved for moments of particular tenderness, made Elena's chest tighten. She felt exposed, her secret admiration laid bare on the page. "I was just practicing," Elena mumbled, her cheeks heating. "You were seeing me," Claire corrected softly, her gaze lifting from the drawing to meet Elena's. The look they shared was a current, a live wire of understanding that had been humming between them for months, maybe years. It was a look that said, "I see you, too." "Rachel," perched between them, felt the charge in the air. She looked from Elena's flushed, beautiful face with its sharp, artistic features and dark, intense eyes, to Claire's serene, classic beauty. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat of a truth she could no longer ignore. She loved them. Not just as friends, not just as roommates she cherished. She was in love with both of them. The realization, so long simmering beneath the surface, boiled over in that quiet moment. It should have felt shocking, impossible. But in the warm, stew-scented sanctuary of their apartment, with the rain guarding their privacy, it felt like the most inevitable thing in the world. The tension of that evening didn't dissipate, it settled. It became a third entity in their home, a silent, watchful presence that altered the chemistry of their interactions. A casual touch on the shoulder from Claire as she passed Elena a cup of tea now felt like a brand. A quick, good-night kiss Rachel always placed on each of their cheeks now lingered a second too long, tasting of unspoken questions. A week later, it was Rachel who broke. They'd had a bottle of wine, then two, celebrating Claire's successful defense of her doctoral thesis proposal. They were sprawled on the big rug in the living room, surrounded by cushions, the empty glasses testament to their joyful exhaustion. Claire was radiant, her intellectual triumph lending a new glow to her beauty. Elena was curled on her side, her head propped on her hand, smiling lazily, her guard down. Rachel sat cross-legged, watching them. The wine hummed in her veins, loosening her tongue and dissolving her caution. "Do you ever think," she began, her voice quieter than usual, "that this, what we have, is more than most people ever get?" Elena's smile softened. "All the time. I've never felt so held. And I don't just mean when one of you steals all the blankets." Claire laughed, a low, melodic sound. "It's true. It's a perfect equilibrium. You." She gestured vaguely with her wine glass between Rachel and Elena. "You're the fire and the earth. I'm just the water trying to keep up." "You're the anchor," Elena said, her voice firm. "We'd float away without you." "No," Rachel said, the word coming out more forcefully than she intended. They both looked at her. She took a shaky breath. "No, it's not just balance. It's not just friendship. It's more." The room went very still. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. "Ratch?" Elena asked, sitting up slowly. Rachel's courage faltered for a second under the weight of their combined gaze. But the love she felt was too immense to contain any longer. It had to spill out, even if it ruined everything. "I'm in love with you," she whispered, her eyes darting between them, including them both in the declaration. "Both of you. I have been for I don't even know how long. And I know it's crazy, and it probably makes no sense, and it might freak you out, but I can't. I can't do this dance anymore. I can't pretend that what I feel for you is just platonic." Silence. It was absolute and terrifying. Elena's face was a mask of shock. Claire's was unreadable, her academic composure locking into place. Rachel's heart plummeted. She'd made a catastrophic error. She began to scramble up, her vision blurring with unshed tears of humiliation. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have. I'll just..." A hand on her wrist stopped her. It was Elena. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Wait," Elena said, her voice rough. Claire moved then, shifting closer on the rug until she was kneeling in front of Rachel. Her blue eyes were no longer guarded, they were deep pools of emotion, fear, wonder, and a dawning, incredible hope. "Rachel," Claire said, her voice so soft it was almost a breath. "Look at me." Rachel forced herself to meet Claire's gaze. "Do you mean it?" Claire asked. "Every word." Rachel could only nod, a single tear escaping and tracing a path down her cheek. Claire reached out and caught it with her thumb. Her touch was infinitely gentle. Then she turned her head to look at Elena. A silent conversation passed between them, a lifetime of shared understanding conveyed in a glance. Elena's shocked expression had melted into something else, a raw, vulnerable awe. Elena was the one to speak next, her artist soul embracing the complexity, the beauty, the terrifying truth of it. "It's not crazy," she said, her dark eyes fixed on Rachel. "Because I'm in love with both of you, too." The confession hung in the air, a second detonation that somehow began to reassemble the world instead of shattering it. Claire let out a shaky breath, a sound of profound relief. "Oh, thank God," she murmured, closing her eyes for a second. When she opened them, they were shining. "I thought I was losing my mind. I thought it was just me." The three of them stared at each other, the truth finally, blessedly, out in the open. The air, which had been thick with tension, now crackled with a new, electrifying potential. Rachel laughed, a wet, choked sound of pure joy. "So, we're all idiots," Elena finished for her, a brilliant smile breaking across her face. "We're all idiots in love with each other." The first kiss happened naturally, inevitably. Rachel, overwhelmed by the tidal wave of relief and emotion, leaned forward. She didn't know who to kiss first, her heart pulling her in two directions at once. It was Claire who closed the final distance. She cupped Rachel's face in her hands, her touch still hesitant, asking a final, silent permission. Rachel's answer was to surge forward, capturing Claire's lips with her own. It was not a chaste kiss. It was weeks, months, years of suppressed longing given voice. It was soft and searching at first, a rediscovery of a landscape known only in dreams. Claire's lips were plush and tasted of red wine and the mint she always grew on the windowsill. Rachel's were insistent, passionate, pouring all of her fervent love into the connection. Elena watched, her breath caught in her throat. The sight of them kissing, her two best friends, the women she loved, was the most erotically charged, beautiful thing she had ever witnessed. It didn't feel like being left out. It felt like witnessing a part of her own heart. When they finally broke apart, breathless, their foreheads resting together, they both turned to look at Elena. Elena didn't need an invitation. She moved into the space they created for her, her hand coming up to rest on the back of Claire's neck, her other finding Rachel's waist. She leaned in and kissed Claire, a kiss that was deeper, slower, an artist savoring her favorite muse. It was a kiss of deep, abiding love, of quiet evenings and intellectual companionship finally igniting into flame. Then, Elena turned to Rachel. Their kiss was entirely different. It was fire and passion, a clash of strong wills and creative spirits. It was hungry and demanding, full of the competitive energy that had always fueled their debates and the fierce protectiveness that defined their friendship. It tasted of possibility and wild, uncharted territory. They broke apart, panting, a triangle of flushed faces and luminous eyes. They were all trembling, caught in the dizzying reality of their new world. "What now?" Rachel whispered, her voice husky. Claire, ever their anchor, smiled a slow, sensual smile that was entirely new. "Now," she said, standing and offering a hand to each of them. "We take this to some place more comfortable." Their bedroom was a testament to their shared life. One king-sized bed they'd bought together after too many nights ending in a puppy pile on someone's too small mattress. Elena's sketches were pinned to the wall, Rachel's architectural models sat on the bookshelf, Claire's stack of books teetered on her nightstand. It was theirs. Standing beside the bed, the reality of what was about to happen settled over them, a delicious, heavy warmth. The hesitancy returned for a moment, a silent question of how this would work. Elena, ever the one to lead with action, solved it. She reached for the hem of her own soft cotton shirt and pulled it over her head, dropping it to the floor. Her skin was pale in the dim light, her breasts small and high, her body a landscape of sharp angles and soft curves that both Claire and Rachel had seen 100 times, but never like this. Never as lovers. It broke the last of the tension. Rachel followed suit, shedding her clothes with an architect's efficient grace until she stood proudly in her underwear, her body strong and toned, a testament to her constant movement. Claire was slower, more deliberate, her movements a sensual unveiling. When she stood before them in just her lace panties, she was like a classical statue come to life, all smooth, creamy skin and gentle curves. They came together on the bed in a tangle of limbs and seeking mouths. There was no jealousy, no sense of division. Hands explored with a reverence that bordered on worship. Elena's charcoal-smudged fingers traced the line of Rachel's spine, while Rachel's capable hands cupped Claire's breasts, eliciting a soft moan that was swallowed by Elena's kiss. Claire, for her part, was the conductor of their symphony. She guided Elena down onto the sheets, kissing her deeply before moving to lavish attention on Rachel's neck, her hands stroking and soothing and igniting wherever they touched. "I want to taste you," Elena breathed against Rachel's lips, her dark eyes blazing with desire. "I've dreamed of it." Rachel moaned in response, her head falling back. "Yes. God, yes, Lenny." But Elena looked past her to Claire. "Both of you. Together." The suggestion sent a fresh wave of heat through them. Claire nodded, her eyes dark with need. They rearranged themselves, a fluid, beautiful negotiation of bodies and desire. Rachel lay back against the pillows, and Claire straddled her thighs, lowering herself until she was poised over Rachel's mouth. At the same time, she leaned down to kiss Elena, who was settling between Rachel's legs. The room filled with the sounds of their shared pleasure, ragged breaths, soft cries, and the wet, intimate sounds of mouths and tongues loving each other. Elena's tongue delved into Rachel's core, learning her taste, drawing out shuddering gasps and broken pleas. Above her, Claire cried out as Rachel's tongue found her center, her hips moving in a slow, desperate rhythm. Elena reached up, her hand finding Claire's, their fingers lacing together tightly as they loved Rachel in unison. The connection was absolute, a perfect circuit of pleasure and emotion. Claire was the first to fall. Her orgasm washed over her with a silent, breathtaking intensity. Her body went rigid, a silent scream on her lips as she shuddered, her grip crushing Elena's fingers. The sensation of Claire climaxing above her pushed Rachel over the edge moments later. She cried out, her back arching off the bed, her body convulsing under the relentless, loving attention of Elena's mouth. Elena gentled her through it, kissing her inner thighs as Rachel's tremors subsided. Claire collapsed beside them, breathless and boneless. Before Elena could move, Rachel was on her, a renewed energy in her limbs. She pushed Elena onto her back and kissed her, letting her taste herself on Elena's lips. "My turn," she murmured, her voice thick with love and desire. She worshipped Elena with her mouth, drawing out sound she'd never heard from her friend, her lover, deep, guttural moans of pure ecstasy. Claire recovered beside them, her hands joining Rachel's, stroking Elena's stomach, her breasts, her face, whispering words of love and encouragement in French against her skin. Elena shattered between them, her cry echoing off the walls, her body bowing as the waves of her climax crashed over her. Rachel held her through it, gentling her with her tongue until Elena was whimpering from oversensitivity. They collapsed together in a heap of sated, sweaty limbs, their breathing slowly returning to normal. The rain had started again outside, a gentle patter against the window, sealing them in their own private world. No one spoke for a long time. There was no need. Elena curled into Rachel's side, her head on her shoulder. Claire spooned up behind Elena, her arm draped over her waist to rest on Rachel's hip. They were a tangle, a knot, a perfect, inseparable unit. Rachel broke the silence first, her voice laced with sleepy wonder. "So, this is a thing we do now." Elena laughed, a low, contented sound. "I really, really hope so." Claire pressed a kiss to Elena's shoulder blade. "It is," she said, her voice firm with a newfound certainty. "This is our thing." And it was. The following months were a golden, hazy dream of discovery. Their home, once a sanctuary of friendship, became a temple of their love. They learned each other's bodies and hearts with the dedication of scholars studying their favorite subject. They established a rhythm. Mornings were for quiet companionship, Claire making coffee, Rachel scanning the news on her tablet, Elena sketching the morning light as it fell across their faces. Their kisses goodbye were no longer perfunctory. They were slow, lingering promises of what the evening would hold. Nights were for exploration. They learned the map of each other's pleasure with patient, joyful dedication. Some nights were frantic and passionate, clothes torn off at the door, a frantic race to the bedroom. Others were slow and tender, hours spent with soft music playing, loving each other with hands and mouths until they were weak and trembling. They learned how to love as three. One afternoon, they took the train out of the city to a secluded lake Claire knew about. The water was crystal clear and cold, surrounded by tall pines. They had the place to themselves. They swam, their naked bodies slick and pale in the greenish water, laughing and splashing like nymphs. Afterwards, they lay on a large, flat rock warmed by the sun. Elena lay on her back, her eyes closed. Rachel knelt beside her, tracing the water droplets on her skin with her tongue, following the path from her collarbone to her navel. Claire watched for a moment, her heart swelling with love, before she moved to join them. She kissed Elena deeply, then leaned over to capture Rachel's lips, tasting the fresh water and the unique flavor of her wife on Rachel's mouth. Their lovemaking there in the dappled sunlight was slow and sun-warmed and profound. It was filled with the scent of pine and clean water and their shared arousal. Afterward, they lay intertwined on the rock, drowsy and complete. "I want to marry you," Rachel said quietly, her head on Claire's stomach. "Both of you." Elena lifted her head, her eyes wide. "We can't. Not legally." "I don't care about the law," Rachel said, sitting up. Her face was serious, her architect's mind already designing the structure of their commitment. "I care about us. I want to stand in front of our friends, our family, and promise myself to you. To make a vow. I want to call you my wives." Tears welled in Claire's eyes. She looked at Elena, who was nodding slowly, a brilliant smile spreading across her face. "Yes," Elena said. 1,000 times, yes. They planned it together, their wedding. It was held in their favorite park. They wore simple, elegant dresses in shades of cream, gold, and deep green. Their friends came, a little confused at first but ultimately won over by the palpable, radiant love that shimmered in the air around the three of them. They wrote their own vows. Rachel went first, her voice strong and clear. "Elena, Claire, you are my heart's true north. You are the foundation upon which I've built my happiest life. I promise to always build a home with you, to design a life full of beauty and strength and joy. I promise to love you, to cherish you, to argue with you about window placements, and to always, always find my way back to your arms." Elena spoke next, her artist's soul finding the perfect words. "You are my greatest masterpiece. My most inspiring muses. My favorite subject to study and to love. I promise to always see you, truly see you, and to celebrate the incredible women you are. I promise to fill our home with art and passion, and to love you with every color in my palette." Claire was last, her voice trembling with emotion but unwavering in its certainty. "You are my equilibrium, my fire and my earth. You are the reason my life is no longer a solo performance but a perfect, harmonious trio. I promise to nourish you, body and soul. I promise to be your anchor in every storm, and to love you with a steadfast and unwavering heart, today and every day that follows." They exchanged rings, simple bands of gold and silver and rose gold, each engraved with a tiny, interconnected symbol, a pen nib, a leaf, a drafting compass. Their first kiss as wives was a three-way embrace, a promise sealed not by law, but by a love that needed no permission. The reception was a riot of music, food, and dancing. Later, much later, they stumbled back into their apartment, their home, giddy and tipsy on champagne and love. They didn't make it to the bedroom. They made love right there on the living room rug, where their first confessions had been uttered. Their wedding dresses formed a soft, white carpet beneath them as they came together, their movements familiar and yet entirely new, sanctified by the vows they had made. Afterwards, they lay together in a contented heap, the city lights twinkling outside their windows. "My wives," Rachel whispered, testing the words on her tongue. She grinned. "I like the sound of that." Elena nuzzled into her neck. "It sounds like forever." Claire wrapped her arms around them both, completing the circle. "It is," she whispered into the quiet, dark room. "It absolutely is." And in their warm, tangled embrace, in the home they had built with love and laughter and a courage that had once seemed impossible, they knew it was true. Their story wasn't an ending, but a glorious, ongoing beginning. A love song in three-part harmony. A perfect, infinite shape. Theirs. Final chapter. The soft, golden light of a late afternoon sun streamed through the windows of their apartment, painting everything in a warm, honeyed glow. It was a different home now, years after those first tentative, world-shattering confessions on the living room rug. The same bookshelves were there, now slightly more crowded. Elena's art covered more of the walls, vibrant canvases that were a testament to a heart fully expressed. Rachel's architectural award stood proudly beside Claire's framed doctorate, symbols of dreams pursued and achieved, all with the unwavering support of their partners behind them. But the greatest symbol of their love was not on a wall or a shelf. She was sitting on the rug, surrounded by a fortress of cushions, babbling happily to a stuffed rabbit with one missing ear. Little Sophia, with Claire's thoughtful blue eyes, Elena's dark, wild curls, and Rachel's determined little mouth. Claire was kneeling behind her, her arms encircling their daughter, helping her stack brightly colored blocks. "And up it goes," Claire murmured, her voice a soft melody of pure love. "One more. You can do it, ma petite." Sophia clapped her chubby hands, toppling the tower with a gleeful shriek. From her favorite armchair, Elena watched them, her sketching pencil still. She no longer drew from a place of longing, but from a place of overflowing contentment. Her sketchbook was filled with these moments, Rachel asleep on the sofa with Sophia curled on her chest, Claire reading a French children's book with dramatic voices, the three of them dancing in the kitchen, a squirming, laughing baby passed between them. The front door opened and closed, and a moment later, Rachel appeared, shrugging off her blazer. Her hair was cut shorter now, sharper, more professional, but her smile was exactly the same, wide, warm, and capable of lighting up the entire room. "I'm home," she called out, her voice laced with the day's fatigue and the instant relief of being back where she belonged. "Mama." Sophia squealed, abandoning her rabbit and attempting to wobble to her feet. Rachel's briefcase hit the floor with a thud as she swept the little girl into her arms, spinning her around and covering her face with loud, smacking kisses that sent Sophia into peals of laughter. "There's my girl. Did you have a good day with Mom and Marmon?" Elena rose from her chair and crossed the room, meeting Rachel halfway. Their kiss was a familiar, welcome home ritual, deep and lingering, filled with the silent communication of a shared life. "Rough day?" Elena asked softly, brushing a strand of hair from Rachel's forehead. "The worst," Rachel sighed, but her smile belied her words as she nuzzled into Elena's touch. "But it doesn't matter now. I'm home." Claire came up behind them, wrapping her arms around both their waists, completing their circle, just as she always did. She rested her chin on Rachel's shoulder and pressed a kiss to Elena's neck. "Dinner is almost ready. Sophia helped me stir the sauce." "She did." Rachel gasped, looking at their daughter with exaggerated awe. "You're such a big helper." Later, after Sophia had been bathed, read to, and finally surrendered to sleep, they regrouped on the sofa. The apartment was quiet again, filled only with the soft sounds of the city at night. Elena sat with her legs draped over Rachel's lap, Claire tucked securely under Rachel's arm, her head on her shoulder. They sat in a comfortable silence, the kind that only exists between people who are perfectly, utterly at peace with one another. The television was off. There was no need for distraction. Rachel broke the quiet, her voice thoughtful. "Do you remember that night? The night with the stew and the rain?" A slow smile spread across Elena's face. "How could we forget? You looked like you were about to be sick, you were so nervous." "I was." Rachel laughed, the sound rich and warm. "I was convinced I was about to make us homeless." Claire lifted her head, her eyes soft with memory. "I was so terrified. And then so incredibly relieved. It was the most courageous thing anyone has ever done for me." "It was the best risk I ever took," Rachel said, her voice growing serious. She looked from Elena to Claire, her gaze overflowing with a love that had only deepened and multiplied over the years. "It led us here." Elena reached out, taking Claire's hand and linking their fingers with Rachel's. "Here is good." "Here is everything," Claire corrected softly. They had built a life, a beautiful, unconventional, perfect life. It wasn't always easy. They had faced confused relatives, bureaucratic hurdles, and the constant, exhausting work of nurturing 3 individual relationships within their trio. They had arguments, moments of miscommunication, and times when they had to consciously choose each other all over again. But they had chosen, every single day. They had chosen to love with a bravery that once felt impossible. Elena looked around the room, at the toys scattered by the hearth, the art on the walls, the 2 women who held her heart. This was their masterpiece. Not a painting, not a building, not a thesis. It was this. A family. Built not on tradition, but on a foundation of unwavering friendship that had blossomed into a love so profound it had created its own world. Rachel squeezed them both tighter. "Do you think she'll understand? One day. What we have?" Claire smiled, a serene, certain expression on her face. "She will. She'll understand that she was born from more love than most people ever get to know. She'll understand that a family isn't defined by its shape, but by the strength of its heart. And our heart," she said, placing her hand over theirs, "is infinitely strong." Elena leaned forward, capturing Claire's lips in a tender kiss, then turned and did the same to Rachel. It was a kiss of promise, of gratitude, of a future that stretched out before them, bright and endless. Outside, the city lights twinkled like a field of stars. But inside, in the warm, comfortable embrace of their home, they had their own universe. It was built on a rug where confessions were made, sealed with vows they wrote themselves, and expanded every day with shared laughter, quiet support, and a love that had proven itself to be not just possible, but the most real thing any of them had ever known. Their story hadn't ended that night with their confession. It hadn't ended with their wedding on the rug. It hadn't even ended with the miraculous arrival of Sophia. It was simply a new chapter, always being written, always being lived. Together.